Good morning, my friends. This is Willie Lawson, and this is the Morning Report, where we don't spin, where we don't do wishful thinking, and we sure don't do whatever the circus was that dropped this week from the Democrat lawmakers telling the American military to, quote, brace yourself now, refuse orders. Yes, we now reach the point where sitting members of Congress are cutting videos aimed directly at the armed forces saying, if the commander in chief gives you a certain orders, you don't have to follow them. Oh my, the coffee is hot this morning. Now listen, I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. This is dangerous stuff. This is dangerous stuff. Not dramatic, not exaggeration, not partisan fan fiction. This is straight up dangerous because the US military does not run on vibes, okay, or hashtags or which politician you like. It runs on two things: trust and the chain of command. If either cracks, the country cracks with it. So today we're going to break down exactly what happened, why they did it, why it matters, and what it means for the rest of us who still believe in the Constitution. Settle in, because my friends, this one matters. All right, there are six lawmakers, all Democrats, all with military or intelligence backgrounds, released a video speaking directly to active duty service members, not to Congress, not to voters, directly to the troops. Here's the roster: Alyssa Slotkin, former CIA from Michigan; Mark Kelly, an astronaut, a Navy captain from Arizona; Jason Crow from Colorado, a former Army Ranger; Chrissy Houlihan from Pennsylvania, a former Air Force officer; Maggie Goodlander from New Hampshire, former DOJ lawyer; and Chris DeLuzio from Pennsylvania, who also was a former Navy officer. So in this video, they warn service members to be, quote, prepared, and remind them repeatedly that they can, in their words, must refuse illegal orders. Now, in a vacuum, that's technically correct, yes. The Uniform Code of Military Justice makes it clear: troops follow lawful orders. The key word is lawful. If an order is clearly illegal, soldiers not only can refuse, they're obligated to. But here's the problem, and it's a big one. They never said what orders they're talking about. They never identified what threat they're referring to, and they never clarified who they're worried about. They just dropped a big, dramatic, ominous, oh boy, be ready message to the military. And folks, that's reckless. Because if you're going to tell the US military to prepare to refuse commands from their commander in chief, you better be specific, very clear, and very much grounded in law. Not politics, but they weren't. Okay, now this video wasn't some civics class refresher. It was aimed squarely at President Donald Trump. These lawmakers filmed this video in direct response to Trump's comments about reorganizing the DOJ, purging corruption from intel agencies, and tightening border enforcement. They framed those as potential, quote, illegal, end quote, actions, and suggested service members may have to refuse such orders. Now, whether you agree with Trump or not. That's not the point today. The point is this: civilian lawmakers should not be telling active duty troops to brace for a potential conflict between them and their commander in chief without absolute clarity on what is legal and what is illegal and what constitutes a real threat. Once Congress starts using the military for political messaging, not oversight, not legislation, but messaging, we are officially playing with matches in the dynamite shed. Billy Graham famously said that he believed that the next move of God would be believers making a difference in the marketplace. In fall of 2019, Anton Kresick moved to Washington, D.C. He began his career in the political arena. Two things became very obvious. Godly principles were lacking on both sides of the aisle. Many of organizations were putting profits before people. 7 Weeks Coffee was started to reverse this trend and live out Graham's calling as believers in the marketplace. As a value-based business, we have a simple and transparent mission. Donate 10% of every sale to pregnancy care centers across the nations. We are committed to earning your trust, not expecting it. How do we do this? Leading with our values, showing the impact, and providing the highest quality product. I am a Christian, I am a conservative, and 7 Weeks Coffee unapologetically supports pregnancy care centers across the nation. Join us by letting your coffee serve a greater purpose. Okay, listen, anybody who's ever served or even talked to people who served understands this. The chain of command is sacred. It's not nice to have. It isn't like it's helpful. It's not an old tradition. It's sacred. Because you cannot run a military if every order must be filtered through. Well, how do I feel about the president today? Or do I like this policy? Or what did my favorite congresswoman say on Instagram? There is no military in the world, not one, that can function like that. So what keeps our armed forces unified is not that everyone agrees, it's that everyone obeys lawful orders quickly, consistently, and without hesitation. That's the difference between a fighting force and a collection of freelancers with uniforms. So when members of Congress encourage the idea that the chain of command is optional, they're playing with the country's survival. Okay, so let's lay out the actual law because the truth does matter. Under the Uniform Code of Military Justice, service members must refuse orders if they are manifestly illegal, unconstitutional, orders to commit crimes or violate the laws of armed conflict. For examples, shooting unarmed civilians, bombing a hospital, falsifying intelligence reports, turning your weapons on American citizens. Those are illegal orders. Clear, explicit, criminal. But political disagreements, policy disputes, arguments about executive power, changes in federal agencies, even controversial executive actions. These are not illegal orders. You don't get to dissipate orders because you don't like the president. If military orders were decided by popularity polls, America would have collapsed before we got to 1800. That's why this video is so irresponsible. It blurs the line. And in the military, blurred lines get people. Okay, let's be honest about this part. The video wasn't about law. It was about narrative warfare. They're trying to seed the idea that Trump might, emphasizing might, issue illegal orders, even though he hasn't issued any such orders and isn't under investigation for doing so. They want to plant a fear in the military, a hesitation, a pause in the chain of command. The military has a saying: slow is smooth, smooth is fast. True, until politics is the thing slowing you down. When civilian politicians try to build political leverage by inserting doubt between the president and the military, what they're actually doing is weakening the country. Imagine this becomes normal. Every president gets their own opposing faction in Congress telling troops, if President X wins, don't follow his orders. If President Y tries to secure the border, refuse. If President Z tries to gives deployment orders, push back. That's the end of the civilian control of the military. And remember, civilian control is not a suggestion. It's the backbone of our republic. If the military becomes a political tug of war, the United States joins the long, depressing list of countries where generals and admirals decide who runs the country. You don't want that. I don't want that. Nobody sane wants that. The President Trump blasted the lawmakers, calling it seditious behavior, even saying that such actions were punishable by death under historical statutes. Now, you and I both know Trump talks big. He does. Sometimes very big, sometimes very bigly, right? But the underlying point is worth discussing. When does political rhetoric cross the line into damaging the armed forces? They're flirting with a constitutional crisis. And they did it for clicks. And they did it for leverage. They did it for positioning, not for the country. So let me tell you what every soldier, sailor, airman, Marine, and Guardian needs more than anything. They need clarity, clear rules, clear authority, clear expectations. Nothing creates danger like mixed messages. And these lawmakers just handed America's military one giant mixed message wrapped in political panic. If Congress wants to oversee the executive branch, that's great. That's constitutional. Hold hearings, pass laws, challenge policies in court, issue subpoenas, do the job, do the damn thing. But talking to active duty troops directly about hypothetical illegal orders with no specifics, nope. Mm-mm. That's not oversight. That's an algorithm. But what's the real motive behind all of this? Well, it's simple. They're scared of Trump's second term agenda. The border, justice reform, intelligence reorganizations, deep state cleanouts, policy reversals. They know that Trump isn't afraid to use executive power. So they're trying to get ahead of him by sowing doubt inside the military. It's not patriotism. That's preemptive sabotage. You don't undermine the institution because you're afraid of how someone might use it. That's not how a constitutional republic works. Now, here's where we get real. Conservatives can't respond to this by yelling at the military or painting service members with a broad brush. The troops didn't do this. Congress did. So here's the smart response. A 5-part response. You can hang in there? I'll put it on the screen. Number 1, defend the chain of command. Say clearly, lawful orders must be followed. Period. Number two, demand clarity from Congress. If they think that something is illegal, they need to cite the law and name the concern, not whisper vague fears at the troops. Number three, call for hearings. Yes, haul these lawmakers in and ask, which orders specifically are you referring to? Force them to put facts on the table instead of insinuation. Number four, let's reassure the military. Someone needs to say, we trust you, we respect you, and we know you operate under law, not hashtags. Number five, this is very important. Stay out of the escalation trap. Don't get dragged into rhetorical nuclear exchanges that make the divide worse. Don't get caught up. Remember, it's pig wrestling. You know what pig wrestling is? Where you get dirty and the pig likes it. Stay out of these escalation traps. The goal is to stabilize the country, not to set it on fire. Listen, this whole episode shows where we are as a nation. Politics is invading institutions that used to be off limits: universities, churches, corporate boardrooms, schools, and now the U.S. military. When politicians fear losing power, they start treating the military like a political heat shield instead of a sacred responsibility. And that's what we're watching today. And if we don't call it out loudly, clearly, and consistently, it becomes normal. And it becomes normal. America becomes unrecognizable. So here's the bottom line. Okay? Political leaders don't get to whisper doubts into the ears of our troops for political gain. They don't get to blur the line between lawful and unlawful orders. They don't get to erode the chain of command just because they're worried about losing elections or losing influence. And just because they don't like the commander who is at the top of the chain of command. And they absolutely do not get to invite chaos into the greatest fighting force on earth. America works because our military obeys lawful orders from a president elected by the people, not from Congress people recording moody videos about potentially illegal commands. My friends, we are better than this. We have to be. Because without a strong chain of command, there's no morning report, no elections, no debates, no coffee, no nothing. Just noise. My name is Willie Lawson. This has been the Morning Report. Until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.